Okay, this is going to be a quick reminder of how we solder before we put it in our oven. So hopefully you came in, the first thing you did was turned on this little red guy here and came around and hit our little OK button. And you see now my little yellow numbers for my temperature are getting close to their set points. 138, 140, 198, 210, 207, 250. So we're getting close. It's almost warmed up. And I have found this board that someone messed up at some point, but they did a very nice solder mask, and we have some nice pads on it. So we're gonna try to just go ahead and solder one little 1206 component to the board. Hopefully it fits. And just to remind you, once again, if we walk over here, we can see, look down, and we have one of our boxes here. And I'm just gonna grab a random resistor of a value we probably aren't gonna care about from this box. So that's gonna be what we use. We're gonna see how well I can do it one-handed. Okay, so we wanna do solder paste. And as you may remember from the demo the other day, its consistency and how easy it is to work with will change, and how much pressure and how much time are the two variables we have to play with when we're pushing it out using this little solder dispenser. And this nice little solder dispenser has a hose, and it has a little foot switch down on the ground. And so the first thing I'm gonna do is just turn it on, and it will say something, and I'm just gonna like tap the foot switch and make sure that I'm getting some air. So we're good. And we can see the pressure reading that this is gonna output on this little dial, right? And we're probably gonna be playing in the realm of, 60 to 100 PSI. And there's also a little dial on the air compressor down there, a little red one. So there's the air pressure in the actual tank. There's a little regulator there that you can turn up with the red dial if you're not getting enough here. And then you can turn the air pressure coming out of this device up and down here. So at this point, that tank should be relatively high. It should be outputting something like 100 PSI, 110 PSI. Up here, we can then dial up and down how much pressure we're getting, and we look at this dial. If it's high and we turn it down, we might need to release a little bit by hitting the foot switch before we see the change. But that's the basic idea here, okay? So actually, maybe not. Let's see, does it? Yeah, hard to say. This isn't, it's not gonna be the most immediate thing. So you're gonna have to play with this to learn how to use it. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure why. It may actually be easier to control it down at the other tank. Don't seem to be getting good control here. We have to read the manual on that and make sure we understand what we're doing. Anyway, you should be able to dial it in and get some solder, if no other way than with the time. And we're gonna go into this little fridge down here and pull out one of our solder pastes and put it into this little tip right here, right? And that should hopefully fit and sort of turn in to clamp into place, which is very, very basically impossible for me to do with one hand. But you can see it should sort of like push in and then turn into these little slots. So let's see if I can just do that really fast. Michelle, push you in. Try to turn it, and there you go. You can see this little thing has now clicked in entirely here. All right, so now we're going to try to put a little bit of solder paste on a couple of pads. And I'm just gonna demo, I'm gonna try maybe like these two pads down here. So hopefully you can kind of see. And we'll just like tap and see how much comes out, if any. So we're getting nothing. When we first start with this thing, it may take a little bit of while. It does seem to sort of crud up in the end, not want to come out the first time. I'm feeling a little pushback, and honestly, it also looks like the seal in there is not looking the best. So some options when you do this, you can change the tips, right? These tips do unscrew. It may also be worthwhile to scrub up into the tip if you have like a thin wire or something that can fit up in there. That can also help. It's quite a bit of pressure, so let's see. I might just see if I can kind of like stick a little bit of my needle into there. See if that helps. Maybe, maybe not. So this is a slightly sad process the first time sometimes. And your boards may only have a few components on them. Honestly, I think a lot of it is our older solder paste, and we have some newer ones in there, so feel free to grab those and play with those if you're not having luck with one. The tips do tend to be kind of a problem, so we should probably, maybe if we grab like a thin solder wire, we can kind of stick it up there and get it in there. Yeah, I think that this is just the tip here that's giving us a problem. All right, I'm gonna do, what I'll typically do too is maybe like really increase the time a little bit. We increase the pressure, and eventually, once we get, okay, a little bit's coming out now. Once we start getting some out, it's gonna end up flowing a little bit nicer. So I'm just kind of keep going. And one thing you'll find too, it's like as the temperature changes, it will change. Sometimes if you give it a really big kick with a high pressure, it will kind of like slowly leak out over a few seconds after you do it. But the first ones are always the ugliest, and you gotta kind of dial it in. Okay. All right, so I don't know how well you can see, but I'm just gonna try to like get just a little bit of dab out onto this pad here. All right. Awesome. And I have succeeded. And you can see I'm actually it's still kind of running out of the tip now. So just like wipe that on another pad on this board. Great. All right, and I'm actually just gonna go ahead and take this off and put it back in the refrigerator, as of course you will do when you are done with your solder job. Okay, so that is where we have solder. It is a little finicky, so play around with the solder and see what you get, and hopefully you can see. There are a couple little dabs. Yeah, the phone doesn't love it, but on these little pads, there are a couple little dabs. It loves my finger. Let's try to get it in focus a little bit. Yeah, there are a couple little dabs of solder. So your goal here is to get a little bit of solder kind of sticking up off of the pad. You don't want it really outside of the bounds of the pad. That would be too much, but it does need to be a little glob that's sticking up. And we're really counting on, when we do this process, surface tension to suck our part into place. So even if you put your part down and it's like really not well anchored there, as long as you get the metal parts, or it's not straight, as long as you get the metal parts into these little blobs of paste, And as long as those blobs of paste are on the pad for the most part, when everything heats up, it will suck into the metal, and it will suck into the metal on the device, on the part, and it will just pull it perfectly straight because of the way the liquid will flow, right? So you really just need to make sure you have it on the pad, and if you haven't done solder mask, it's not on the other parts of the copper, and you just need to make sure that your part is roughly placed on there. Okay, so let's come over here and pick out a part. So we'll just pick something super arbitrary that no one is ever gonna use. So let's just pick like 619. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab a pair of tweezers and just grab one little guy out of here. So we have one little component on our tweezers. I'm gonna drop it until it cuts face up. So if that was white, I would just keep dropping it until it looks face up the way that I want. And then I'm gonna bring it over to my pad, and I'm just going to sort of dip it on there. And the oven is now ready for a board. And you heard that lovely little dinging, and oh my goodness, look at that delicious green glow. So now we have plopped our part on the board, and you can see I haven't it's kind of sitting up a little bit on one side. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And I'm just gonna drop it on our oven tray, and away it shall go. And we can check on it in a couple minutes. So that's the basics here of soldering up a board. We are going to go ahead and close this up, be good citizens, put it back where we found it. We have a board that has gone through the oven, and we can see, if we take a look, a beautifully soldered little resistor, perfectly centered. So that is the goal. Look at that, amazing. You'll have beautiful boards in no time. Do not forget, once again, to turn this bad boy off just by flicking that switch. Should be no problem at all. And you are then good to go. We will talk a bit more about what to do if your solder comes out poorly and bridges to ground or isn't what you expect. And also, of course, the number one thing we're gonna do after we do our board design here and have it situated is we're going to take our continuity on our multimeter, and we're going to especially touch ground, so touch the big plane, and then touch each of our pads and just see, did we short ourselves to ground anywhere where we shouldn't have shorted ourselves to ground. So there's a good example. I shall leave it, and good luck with your assignments.